How long ago was that? Yeah. Wow. Huh? Oh, hi.
Yeah, they have these 12 years and we're supposed to support them. Are you kidding me? Yeah.
Okay.
This is scary already.
What time is it? Probably 7 o'clock.
I know. Like, Schuster, shut up.
I know, he likes to go out.
I know.
And here's the thing, we're not voting on any of this shit, so...
No, it was just questions.
Right.
My main question was, and I asked him, is there anything being built right now?
Did you hear the rumors that were up?
I did. I swear to God. That's what I was told. And I asked the mayor, she said, there's nothing going on right now.
That was a year ago, too. Wow.
So the latest I heard was up there the project, a big project going in, and it's going to be by, not Cardone, the other one. Quandel. And now this other one turned out to be Quandel, but it's down in, yeah.
Hey,
Do we have the documents for the parking authority, sewer authority, or not?
They're not here. They said they are near complete.
You asked for them.
Oh,
You guys have physically asked for them.
we did. They're here. They're in the law department. I don't have them.
I didn't
Bring
see
them
them.
down. They said
Did
they're.
you make a mention of it tonight? Because you,
Yeah, Tom will. Tom knows all about it. He's the one that's got you the document. So
I was going to ask you a question about, okay, so they're talking about rehabbing houses. Oh,
this is pretty. Should be. They better put me in. So. Oh.
zoning won't.
No. You could actually buy.
Never gonna happen.
You could buy.
I was hoping Schuster was next if you weren't.
I know.
I'm thinking McAndrew.
I could see if we could vote on it, or,
He
I
just-
could get it if it was...
Yeah, I say if we wanted to, they want to make housing, put those modulars up. Don't try to refurb an old house. It costs double. It costs double. So, look at Jessica or
Like,
whatever.
who did the ones in,
What if you signed in?
on
Good.
Davis Street?
Next week, we need to announce it, we will, right?
Yeah. Davis Street was a they said no low income housing. Remember? And the first thing they did, they opened a section in son of a bitch. Just these two.
Who owned it?
I thought it was some Amish company or something. I'm not sure who has it now.
Yeah.
I don't remember. So these was Jim McDermott, the guy that's on. He wanted to be like
Huh?
okay with him.
Oh, Norman.
That's unanimous. And this
Yeah.
one came from Bob up at the Clerk. He's Tom Welby's brother. So I called Tom Welby. I talked to him. He said he has no problem. There's no conflict or nothing with him. So how do you feel about him as an alternate? Just an alternate. Same time this is up, but I want them to start on them so that we don't,
Yeah,
you know. I think it's June. Oh, it's advertised. I mean, good. If we have a reappointment, yeah. I mean, it's, and the other thing, that he will be the third, which means good luck. Yeah, third alternate means I'll see you in a couple of years.
Never, maybe never.
Maybe never. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent reflection for our servicemen and women throughout the world, and continue prayers for Detective Kyle Gilmartin's recovery and welcome home, and for those who have passed away in our community. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Here.
Mr. Schuster?
Present.
Dr. Rothchild? Here. Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
Mr. Smurl?
Here.
I would like to make a motion to take from the table resolution number 16 of 2024.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor and a second to take from the table resolution number 16, 2024. This resolution is reallocating ARPA funds to allow for violence prevention efforts. It was not properly voted on after introduction in fifth order on February 20th. It is being placed in fifth order for a vote. The rules will be suspended after it is voted on in fifth order, and it would be moved to seventh order for a final vote. Anyone who would like to speak on this piece of legislation may do so in fourth order during citizens' participation. On the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved. Dispense with the minutes, please.
Third order, no business at this time.
Do any council members have any announcements at this time?
Mr. President, just a reminder, this coming Saturday is the St. Patrick's Day Parade. At 11 a.m. will be the Brian P. Kelly Road Race, which this year is going to benefit Detective Kyle Gilmartin. So we're trying to encourage all local runners. It's a 2-mile race on the parade route, so we know there'll be great traffic control. But also, we want to get as many runners out to support Detective Gilmartin, because all proceeds will go to he and his family. So just want to encourage and to remind everyone that Saturday parking's going to be a little crazy in the city, so just be patient and be cognizant of that. So that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Anyone else?
I'm going to say one more thing. I'm glad that Mr. King said a 2-mile race. The Kelly race is a 2-mile race, and I think he could correct me on this one. It is the shortest race. Is it in the state of Pennsylvania? So if you're a new runner...
It's not.
It's not?
The Greenwich Mile.
Oh, okay. If you're a new runner, it's only 2 miles, so it might be a way to get your feet wet and support the parade and support a good cause. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Schuster.
I had an announcement. This past weekend, we were supposed to have sprucing up Scranton, which was a city-run cleanup, but that had to be rescheduled due to the weather. So that's now going to be Saturday, March 16th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And at 11 a.m., they'll be meeting up at Trip Park, 2199 Dorothy Street. And just a great way to get out there as the weather warms up and to help clean up the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rothschild.
I have a quick one. So Saturday, April 27th, Scranton ALS United Walk is going to take place, and it's going to be for the ALS United Mid-Atlantic Division. So it's, the message I got was save the date, come and walk with us. The walk is free. Sign up and help me fundraise or donate at Team Miller, at alsunitedwalk.org. You can also buy shirts. Short sleeve are $15, long sleeves are $20 that you could wear during the walk. And it'll be at the PNC Park Field, 235 Music, up in the mountain. And again, April 27th. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Mr. Voldenberg?
Fourth order, citizen participation.
First, Joan Hodowanitz.
Joan Hodowan at Scranton. I was one of those fortunate people on Friday afternoon to see Detective Gil Martin return, and it was a beautiful day and a beautiful event. But I would ask you all to remember that next Tuesday, March 12th, is the 9th anniversary of the passing of Officer John Wilding. And so let's keep him and his family in our thoughts. I want to thank everybody who supported the Friends of the Scranton Public Library book sale that concluded last Saturday. Just so people understand, the profits we make on these book sales go towards children's programs. And for example, this Sunday at the Children's Library up on Vine Street at 2 p.m., we're having a program that we're funding. It's the Dinosaur Adventure Show. And have you ever met a 5-year-old who didn't like dinosaurs? Okay, it's a lot of fun. You should register your attendance if you want to bring your child. Call 348-3015 or stop by the Children's Library and they'll register you. They're going to have, among other things, an 8-foot Triceratops skull. So bring your kids, they'll have a ball. One of the things that I would like to see in the future, or hopefully I'll live long enough, is those union contracts. The firefighters' contracts, it's now 337 days, and the police is 221 days. And those really should be on the city's website, documents which the public should be able to read. February 29th was the deadline for the RFP for financial forecasting for the city. Does anybody know whether or not they got any takers on that RFP?
I did not look it up yet to see.
Okay, I'll check with John Murray when I get a chance. Also, during the first half of March, keep in mind that we should be getting an update on the city's bond rating. If you hear anything on that, please let us know. Item 5B, the Capital Reserve Fund. It says in the legislation that the initial funding is a total of $3.3 million. But then it gives a description of how it will be funded thereafter. What it doesn't say is what will be the annual requirements thereafter. And it's something I would like you to, if you could, discuss during fifth order, because it's one thing to establish a capital reserve fund. It's another thing to sustain it, and you need to take a look at how that's going to impact future budgets. Also, 5C, the stormwater debris removal for Kathleen Kujawski. I don't have a problem with that. I saw in the legislation it said to help a property owner who is struggling with large boulders on her property and other stormwater debris following the flooding on September 9th. But I have two comments. One, it says on the financial impact of the legislative sheet, all it says is general fund. It doesn't quantify what it might cost, and maybe they can't quantify at this point in time. But the other question is, have there been other residents and homeowners who also need city assistance, and what are we doing for them? I mean, if we have one resident who requires city assistance, and what they require actually is an easement, and there are other things required, have there been other residents who've been impacted by that stormwater flood? And do they also need some assistance from the city for removal of debris?
Joan, I was there after the flooding, days
Yeah.
after, and the city did have a lot of equipment in, and they did clear out stuff that was landed in people's yards, fill their swimming pools and stuff. I know that was all done, and that was all.
Okay. I
that was
just
all
don't, I just, we got one person identified. I just want to make sure that anybody else who needed help was offered the same assistance.
So this one, Joan, this is where the actually, the creek bed, it's a small creek bed that comes across Newton Road. It put about a 6 to 8 foot rock pile that closed Newton Road at least for a few days, and this rock pile went right into that home. I think it took the home off the foundation there.
Okay, yeah. If there are other residents, though, who have had similar problems, I hope that we're giving them also a certain amount of assistance. Thank you.
Thank you. Les Spindler?
Good evening, Council. Les Spindler, city resident homeowner. As Joan said, I wasn't able to attend Officer Gilmartin's ceremony on Friday, but I watched it on television, and it was really inspiring. It's amazing the progress he's made in less than 2 months, taking 2 shots to the head, and he should be an inspiration to everybody, and God bless him. And I think everybody's prayers work, but he needs more prayers. I'm sure he still has a ways to go, but it's unbelievable the progress he's made. And best of luck to him and his family. Sitting in my house today watching the rain fall and seeing the water piling up on my sidewalk so nobody could walk. I'm just wondering if there's any information on my corner going to get fixed, which I was promised almost 2.5 years ago. They said we're on the paving list. It wasn't paved last fall. I wonder if it's not we're on the spring list.
I'm not sure if it's on the spring list, but we did discuss the stormwater management, and you were only 1 block out of the range, and I believe that they did you go in and...
So I spoke to Mr. Spindler about it. When we look at the map for the stormwater projects that are going to occur in Tripp Park and North Scranton area, the cutoff was Hawthorne Street, and I know that Bulwer Street, your street, is parallel. The parallel issues to Hawthorne Street. I let the residents speak to the individual there that was from the engineering company, but I'm going to get that into the city to move that over at least 1 block because I know the issues are parallel to Hawthorne.
Well, like I said, 2.5 years ago, they were up there, and they said they were going to fix the whole corner. Yeah. And they said last year, I have to wait till the street gets paved. So I hope it's done this year, because I know the Fish Commission isn't stocking Roaring Brook because of what the water company did. They could have stocked the front of my house today, and they could have fished in front of my house.
Mr. Voldenberg, can you check to see if have they posted the spring paving list yet on the city website?
I believe they have, Mr. King, yes.
Okay. So it is posted on the website right now.
Okay.
Les, I'm not sure if you're on there, but...
All right, last time I was here, I talked about how Wilkes-Barre fixes their potholes permanently, not like we do it here, just throwing a cold patch in the hole, letting the cars run over it. That machine they use can also be rented. You don't have to buy it. So I think the city should seriously look into doing that. Because the way we fix potholes, it's not a fix. Wilkes-Barre does it permanently. They just don't throw a cold patch into the hole. And I explained all that 2 weeks ago when I was here. Next thing. So, any information about what I spoke about a few weeks ago, and Mr. McAndrew looked into it, about the bridge on North Main Avenue? That trucks keep running into it?
Mr. Spindler, we reached out to Norfolk Southern Management, and we supplied them with a picture of the Capouse Avenue Bridge as an example, and asked that they paint the North Main Avenue in a similar fashion.
Okay, I think that would be a good idea.
We could follow up, but we did provide them with all the information.
All right, thank you. And I wasn't here last week. I saw the police chief was here. I wish I could have been here, and I would have asked him about the idea that I had about educating the general public about gangs. I think it would, the more eyes you have on the street, like I said, myself and a couple neighbors, they said, we wouldn't have known that kid that was walking by Scranton High had a gun. We wouldn't have known he was in a gang. So I think the people should be educated. Lastly, I noticed for a number of weeks now we haven't had the Times Tribune reporter here, and I think I know why. I called last week wondering why. I'm a big sports fan. If anybody gets the paper and they look at the sports page, there's no more NBA coverage, no more college basketball coverage. I called last week and asked why, and they said their deadline used to be 11 o'clock at night. Since they were sold, it's 7:30 in the evening. So I said to the guy, I'm seriously considering stopping my subscription. And he said, I'm not alone. Well, that's ridiculous. A lot of news happens at night. If you notice the newspaper now, there's nothing to it. There's no sports. High school sports, that's all you see in the sports section now. That's it, no professional sports. And now baseball's coming up. So nobody's going to get baseball scores. I guess you'll have to watch ESPN. Thank you for your time.
Mark Scarincio?
Good evening, Council. Mark Scarinci, Mulberry Towers across the street. So I've been here last year, and I'm no stranger about these noise issues, Council. And so I'm going to address these noise issues, but first, I want to comment very briefly on the scaffolding issue here. I want to know, Council, when I was in New York City, I had an audition for Santa Claus at Herald Square. And as I'm walking down 6th Avenue, I look to one of the side streets and I see this gigantic boom lift. And these people are working on the facade of this building with the windows and everything. That thing must have been 100 feet high. I wanted to know, was there any talk about a boom lift in front of, instead of all this scaffolding? Was that a possibility?
When it was put out for bid, it was decided that it's much easier to use a scaffold. You could do multiple sections and multiple levels at one time.
I see. All right. Well, all right, that's for my own curiosity. Moving on. I want to point your attention out to this, Council. I walk the streets of Scranton every day. I have no car. And I look at the drivers as I observe people in driving. And they always have their cell phone readily available. It's either in their hand or on their dashboard there. And what they do is they say, I'm driving, but I'm unscrupulous. I'm going to say I'm not driving, and they do it anyway. And shame on those people. And they know who they are. What happens is that it becomes a distraction, and you're not paying attention. Now, for the point of my conversation, let's just pretend that this red dot is a car. Here's this tractor trailer on Mulberry Street, and he wants to get through that intersection. But that car is not going through the intersection because he's looking at his cell phone, watching some video or texting somebody, and that tractor trailer driver leans on that air horn, and it is loud, right here at Mulberry Street in Washington. And because there's a building on one side and a building on the other, that air horn magnifies that sound, Council. It's very annoying. So, I want to know if we can do something about that air horn, Council. What it is that since you have workers on the scaffolding, I took a picture yesterday. Here's this picture of a worker on the scaffolding. He has no railing. I know it's a little dark, but can you see that? He has no railing behind him. If he was to get startled from an air horn because of some impatient tractor-trailer driver, he's going to fall over backwards. He's higher than the stained glass window. He's going to get hurt, if not killed. So here's the solution, Council. I want to know if you could put a sign like this at Mulberry and Washington. And the tractor-trailer driver cannot lean on that air horn, because I'm telling you something, it may come a time when somebody's going to get startled, he's going to fall off that scaffolding, and there will be a stain on this building until the end of time itself. It's only about a $50 sign, Council. You could put it on north and south at the intersection, just temporarily, as long as the scaffolding is done. Are there any questions, Council? Thank you for your time.
Thank you. B. Morgan?
Good evening, Council. The first thing I have here is that I think before the city funds any housing projects in this city, somebody should actually enlighten themselves about migration of people from one area to another. And you might learn something. Might be eye-opening. I think that people should look a little bit into what happened at the hideout in the Poconos and migration there. But in general, there is a lot of data on migration. And I'd go to Kingston and Plymouth and I'd look at what migration has done there. And, you know, when I talk about public corruption, I mean, these projects being funded with federal and state money, we're living in a country now where the Social Security Fund has been looted and it's $175 trillion down. And we can't fund our military. The Congressional Budget Office has said that we don't have an ability to fund our military. And if you want people to be successful in life, you have to offer them opportunity. They have to work, make a living. And when you're talking about seniors in their homes and they can't go to the second floor, well, maybe we should be using grant money to make it possible for them to have a bathroom and a shower built on the first floor of their home so they don't have to go up the steps. And that way they don't have to leave their home. And when they pass or something happens, they can sell the home and the next person who moves into it, they can modernize it or remodel or do whatever. I think what the city's done over an extended period of time is refused to put any funding in the neighborhood that benefited the residents of this city. And it's gone on for decades. We've had a lot of projects done here. Look at what happened to the Scranton parking garages. The residents put all kinds of money into that. Look where that took us. Look at the Scranton Sewer Authority, all the money that was put there and what that did for us. And the list just goes on and on. Southside Sports Complex, Scranton's golf course. You know, look, we've got to come to a conclusion in order to turn this city around. We got to stop playing games with federal and state grant money, because all it's doing is creating more blight and forcing more people out of the city. The people who fled the city were people who had an income and could get outside the corruption here. And they've gone to other places like Clark Summit and places nearby. They aren't going to play games here. But you know, let's switch this up a little bit. Since we had a meeting last week, Mr. Council President Smurl, have you or any of the council members done anything about the perceived corruption in the licensing and inspections department? Do you have anything to report to the residents of this city about the remedial actions that this council has taken for the benefit of the residents and the 31 properties that were condemned by one inspector? And maybe the council itself should explain to the residents what an inspector has to do to become certified to run roughshod over the community, and how long is Tom Alecki going to be allowed to violate zoning law in the city? And I just would like to offer you an opportunity to respond.
I believe every council member responded to the administration over the questions last week. There were many questions that went in. Now, the responses we should have this week, I don't know how detailed or whatever, but, you know, we can only ask.
I think you can do much more than ask.
Okay.
I think you can investigate because the Home Rule Charter gives that authority. And you also have a right to go down and sit in the mayor's office and tell the mayor you're not going to tolerate this stuff and you need answers and you need change. You need a change of direction. The residents deserve that. The residents deserve a council that understands that in order to move this city forward, somebody's got to make a stand, make a change to the way the government functions, and it has to function for the benefit of the residents. And I think that the problem we have in the city is we forget where the founding fathers got their ideas and what the government was founded to do. The government is founded to serve the people, and that's not what's going on here. We got a government that's building rental units, helping people move federal funds to special interest groups. That's not helping the residents. That's forcing the residents to flee the city. We've been backwards for a long time. We've elected the wrong people to the offices for a very long time. The people in this city need to wake up and make a change.
Norma Jeffries?
Good evening, Council. And the first thing that I want to do is just to let the Gilmartin family know that each morning that he is covered with prayers and that, you know, it was just so inspirational to see the power of prayer. So to that family, you know, I continue to pray for them each day, and I know that we can just continue to expect a miracle in his case. Also, I wanted to talk tonight about, I guess it's rainwater, stormwater, at the corner of Olive and Colfax and the corner of Olive and Wheeler. And Doris could probably tell you more about it because Doris walks that way with a walker. The flood there, each time that it rains, it's way out in the middle of the street. And if it's cold, it's ice. So I don't know what can be done. Those two corners must be connected under the ground somewhere, that they both flood out when there's a rain like we had today.
Mr. Voldenberg, ask if we can get the vac truck back out there. I know I requested this in the fall, and they went out, and it worked for a while. Evidently, they filled up again at both corners, Olive and Colfax and Olive and Wheeler.
It's an ongoing problem. I'll have them send the truck out tomorrow.
Thank you. Sorry, Norma.
It's okay. And then it was good to hear that the street cleaning schedule is on the city website, because I was out in Green Ridge the other day, and the street cleaner was busy cleaning Washington Avenue out in Green Ridge, so I thought maybe we're going to be next, but I doubt it because they're doing a lot of digging and replacement of pipes in my neighborhood, so we probably won't get a street cleaning this year, but it's always hopeful. The other thing that I wanted to talk about tonight was, you know, my favorite thing is street signs. And good old Facebook, it was down today, but when I was on earlier, I did get something popped up on my Facebook this morning at about 7:30, and I'm going to read it to you because I gave each one of you a copy of that posting that popped up on my Facebook this morning, and I would just like to read it so that the public can see what, how long I've been up here asking about street signs. And it was dated April the 22nd, 2021. This morning, Mayor Paige Cognetti, Representative Marty Flynn, and Representative Kyle Mullins announced a $306,000 PA Department of Economic Development multimodal transportation grant to the city of Scranton to replace street signs in poor condition and install signs in locations where signs are absent. The Street Sign Project is a long-needed program that will improve emergency services and the aesthetics of our neighborhoods. The team is DPW is ready to go. That was in 2021. I'd like to know if someone can give me an update, not me, just me alone, the city's residents, as to this $306,000. I know at one time I was told that they had to rent some kind of a machine or scaffolding thing to get up to reach the street signs. So that gave me the impression that the street signs were maybe ready to go, and all they were waiting for was this machine to install the street signs. So my question to council, if you could find out a status of this particular information that I gave each of you, and if you could just get back to the residents of Scranton as to that $306,000, and if it hasn't been used, then it must be growing a lot of interest sitting in an account somewhere. And like I said last week, I would love to start a business myself and hire people to get these street signs going. You know, we're going into this weekend is the parade, and you know, there are people coming to town, and there's so many signs that are in need or missing in our city, and we're better than that. Scranton is a better city than that we should let our city go downhill, fix our street signs, especially when in 2021, $306,000 was granted for that project. I don't know who the project lead is, but if you could just find out that for us, that would be great.
Voldenberg, can you reach out to the administration and ask for a breakdown of the $306,000 that was used for the street sign project? I know we got an update on some of the street signs that were replaced. I feel like we had a database at some point in time, and I feel that this grant has been spent.
It's been expended, and they're looking for additional grants at this time.
Thank you. Could we just get a breakdown
I'll
of
get
this
a
so we can
breakdown
report it
of
out?
how the money was used.
Thank you very much.
In an update in terms of how that project or process is going to move forward in 2024, if you could.
I will, Mr. King.
Thank you.
Doris Kozlowski.
Good evening, Council. And I'll say, too, it was wonderful to see Detective Gilmartin on television the other day. Okay, I'm here. I want to talk about Pennsylvania American Water again. First of all, I want to know, I think they're supposed to decide their rate hikes sometime towards the end of this month. So I'm hoping that Council and the rest of the government people will be still putting pressure on the PUC so they don't think it was a one-night meeting and they're going to forget about it. Now, I also want to say, which to me is a public service announcement. I don't know how many people in the city carry the protection plans with the water company. They have a protection plan that they sell for the sewer pipes coming in once they hit your property, the outside ones, and they have a protection plan for the inside. I was paying last year $17.50 for the combined, for the sewer outside and the inside, which I just started taking after my husband passed away, just for peace of mind, even though I use my regular plumber. I received a notice in the mail that my stuff was going to be automatically renewed, and now the new price, it was going to be automatically renewed March 29th at the price of $13.99 a month for the indoor pipes and $28.49 for the outdoor pipes, which of course I knew would be baloney if I called that they would lower it, because that's last year I called and they lowered it. I'm sure they have no intention of really collecting that amount of money, but if people don't call to have it lowered and they're afraid not to take it, they will collect that kind of money. To me, they're like the mafia. So I made my phone call and said I'm disconnecting my service for that. I don't renew my policy. And of course, then they sent me to the cancellation lady who said, oh, wait a minute, let's see if I can help you out. So what she did was she helped me out to a raise of a total of $3.73 more for both plans together, totaling $21.23 for both plans. So instead of $42.48, it'll now be $21.27 for the two combined plans, which they automatically put on your water bill. So my public service announcement is for anybody listening and anybody to spread around to their friends. Please call the number there and tell them you're going to cancel, because to me this is a lot of crap. And I'm sure they're doing the same thing with the PUC with the water rate hike. They probably never intended to actually be able to get that much and possibly will cut it down, but they may cut it down a little bit so everybody says, oh, well, wow, at least they cut it down. And I know council can't really do anything about this, but I want people to know. And spread the word, and spread the word to your friends and neighbors that are homeowners. Okay, so that was basically what I came to talk about today. But now that you said something about sending a truck out for Olive and Colfax, which I did mention last week about the water problem there, is this truck thing like to clean the sewers like they used to 100 years ago? Is that where, because it's coming back up out of the sewer? Because they can actually send the truck over to Mulberry and Colfax, because you have to, like when I cross the street that way, I have to go around into Mulberry instead of going up the curb cut on Colfax, because the water comes out of the sewer there too. So if the guy's going to be in the neighborhood, maybe he could check that out. It's not near as bad. I mean, it's not like a giant thing, but it's a big puddle that you want to walk around.
Mr. Voldenberg, add that to this. Thank you.
I came to the at the end of the caucus, and I heard them talking about the affordable housing, which was my big thing when they were ripping down all the houses. One of the questions I might want to ask is if anybody thought of making if they're going to build smaller homes on some empty lots, of looking into maybe modular homes. I think modular homes are much cheaper. I know there's some modular homes up on Colfax, like East Gibson Street, that are very nice. So that might be helpful. I don't know if anybody ever, I know there's going to be empty lots where they tore things down. We probably need some housing like Park Gardens, which I believe is like a rental control, but it's not like a project housing. And you know all those empty lots that are that the Commonwealth bought when they were Mercy and Moses and they were going to hook up and all that, and it's all barren land that they haven't never done anything with. I don't know if anybody in the city has ever approached them to see if they wanted to sell it. You know, maybe at a low price just to get rid of it, get it off their tax things, and maybe they could put some kind of housing there. And when you're talking about living in place, I myself live in a 2-story house, and I have chairlifts on the front steps that were put in by the veterans for me. They go up to the one step halfway and up the other. The veterans put in a handicap shower upstairs for me. I had the veterans put in a wheelchair ramp. It's all part of the veterans' benefits. So, I mean, when you're talking about revamping the houses, maybe people don't have to move out of their 2-story, and you don't have to build a big bathroom downstairs. You may be able to do these other things. They're expensive. I believe those chairlift things are like $10,000. And that was like one of the things when the hospital was trying to buy my house. I was trying to tell them.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And your 421 next door? It's on the demolition list for this spring.
Thank you.
I didn't do it.
I see they did the one, they just tore down the one on Ash Street.
Yes. Patrick Egan?
Mr. Voldenberg, the basins that are on Colfax, I believe that they're American water basins. If they end up being American water basins, we would have to contact American Water to do the cleanouts, correct?
I'll contact both DPW and American Water.
Thank you.
I'll have them out there.
Thank you, Mr. Voldenberg.
Members of council, thank you for taking the time to hear us out. My name is Patrick Egan. I represent Kelly Towing and Kelly Motors. I'm also here in attendance with Mike Moletsky from Kaiser Valley Auto Wreckers and Moletsky Towing. Together, each of our businesses has been in Scranton for a combined 75 years. We have 56 employees throughout all of our enterprises, and we strongly believe in the city, the renaissance it's going through, and what our roles in it are as both business owners, employers, neighbors, and members of the community that we all call home. It's because of this I'd like to address several concerns that we have with the towing ordinance of 2024 that's being introduced today. We feel that a lot of these concerns that we have limit our ability to provide the level of service required and that the city does need provided. There's a major disconnect between towing, which is the general term for our industry, and it's a conventional and routine service as compared to the more advanced recovery services, which are required when vehicles end up in different locations. Because of this, the amount of equipment and personnel required to remove vehicles from these different locations is expensive, not only to mobilize, but for us to maintain as companies and to be able to continue to offer these services. We do feel that the mayor did a great job reaching out and bringing us all together in a meeting, but that a lot of our input and opinions were lost among other voices and concerns, and that we were not really being heard out and able to share our inputs and expertise. We'd like to state that we totally support the goal of the towing ordinance, but that its execution has a lot of major flaw points that do set it up for failure, in our opinion, and it doesn't address some of the biggest concerns, the largest of which involve safety issues both for our personnel and the general public. Our major concerns are that because of the structure and lack of flexibility for us to make judgment calls in our profession, that we will not be able to properly and adequately deploy the resources we have invested in to perform jobs efficiently and, most importantly, as safely as possible for both our team members and the public as a whole. We also feel that this does not accurately represent the massive increase in costs, such as insurance, equipment, and labor, that we, like all other businesses, have absorbed in the last 4 years. The investment we have made in order to provide the level of services that our customers in the city deserves aren't really reflected in this deal. We'd ask that you simply hear us out on some of our concerns before making a final decision on this ordinance, because we do want to continue to be able to provide the best service possible to the city, to our customers, and do so while providing a safe working environment for our employees and being able to complete jobs efficiently and safely as possible, and not trying to cut corners, which is encouraged with this proposed ordinance. We'd just like to thank you for your time, and if we could have time to address some of the more specific concerns.
Patrick,
Yes,
is
sir.
it possible for you to send an email to Mr. Voldenberg
Absolutely.
listing exactly what your, like, bullets of what your concerns are, so that, because I think the ordinance will probably be introduced tonight.
Yep.
That's the reason that you typically have 3 readings before anything is passed. And at least if you submit to us exactly what issues, I know that there was a committee formed. Mr. Smurl and I were there initially with the mayor when we met with all of you. And there was an agreement that all the towers would get together as a committee and then submit some changes. And I believe some of those changes, a lot of them I think were made to the ordinance, the original ordinance that was presented, but apparently not everybody's voice was heard. So if you could forward those issues or concerns that you have, that would allow us, and then what will happen is Mr. Voldenberg will get those to each of us. That'll give us the opportunity to reach out to the administration and try to get some answers and see if there's, you know, anything that can be done to change it. Because, as I said, it'll likely get introduced tonight, but that'll give us time to be able to
Perfect.
identify those issues.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Also, Mr. Egan, thank you for coming tonight to voice that. We would not know that if you weren't here tonight.
Thank you very much. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Michael Molesky?
Good evening, Council. Mike Molesky, Kaiser Valley Auto Wreckers, Molesky Towing. Also here about the introduction of the towing ordinance. Reiterate what Pat said. Mr. Egan, he brought up a lot of valid points. I think I don't need to get into everything. Mr. King brought up everything he said would work. We could send all our concerns over. A lot of our voices weren't heard. The committee went and submitted some stuff, and I don't think it was all what everybody wanted. So if we could, or was expecting, so if we could just submit them over to you guys and you guys can review them, we can move forward. Thank you.
Mr. Malinsky, will you also contact the group that you formed? Because I spent many, many hours with them discussing all of this. So I didn't hear everybody's exact concerns. We heard the general thing, and basically what the city wants to do is get out of the towing business. There's no pay a fee to start or to be a part of it anymore. There's no paying the city a penny. You don't have to pay for the city for storage like it used to be. You have to pay the city for every tow that you do like it used to be. So there's a ton of that's gone to make it fair. And now the distance, it's a 3-mile radius now instead of a 5. So to try and, I assume to help our local businesses and keep it local. But if there are other things, maybe get back to with that group, because I assumed it was formed to bring us all of that information, and evidently I didn't receive it all.
And as far as what the old contract paying the city, I don't know if there was ever problems on any of that, but moving forward with this new ordinance, there's stuff that we could discuss moving back. We're moving backwards almost 30 years with stuff.
Yeah, I believe paying to be part of a towing company or to be part of a list in the city of Scranton to be a tower is not the right way to go.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll get all our concerns over it and we'll move forward. Okay.
Yes,
Thank you very much.
Probably
Have a good
introduce it, but get your questions and stuff in so we can keep moving on this, because the old one is expired.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ron Ellman?
Yes, I'm sorry. I thought there was some people ahead of me. It seems like our mayor is more interested in pickleball than concerned of sitting here for an hour listening to comments by interested parties. Well, last week I asked a few simple questions regarding Cockwell's $3,000 rental property, like the assessments and the taxes and so on. Did anybody have any knowledge of anything, or is that supposed to be swept under the rug? No, I guess not. I hope we don't end up as taxpayers having to subsidize the rent on this place. That ought to be prohibited on paper. How much money did the city blow in this deal anyway? You know how much we invested in it?
I'm not sure in what deal.
I just wondered. It just, last week, the paper just said the city invested had a little investment in it.
Oh, in that new building, the new structure that they built? Oh, yes. The city, their city's investment was $200,000.
That's not so bad. Yeah, I talked to 3 or 4 people this week. Everybody thinks Cockwell already has someone in mind to rent the place. I hope they have a large income and lived here 5 or 10 years, and not somebody they're bringing in like our mayor came 3,000 miles away. In a short time, we're facing an adjustable rash of coming tax increases, like the reassessment. I forgot what year it was, but Gerald Cross, I know you people are familiar with Mr. Cross. It must be like 10 years ago. He said that the city was $8 million, had lost $8 million of worth. Since then, everybody has done nothing except raise taxes to try to overcome this. That doesn't seem to work. Since Janet Evans tried to do something about these phony nonprofits hiding behind the Pure Charity Act, no one has done anything about all these parasites living off the city. You know, this week there was something on television. A woman took some salary money from $100,000 or something from the Ark. They have bought house after house after house in nice neighborhoods all around the city, but the money goes to the Abington. All we do is lose property. This got to stop, but nobody seems to care. You people were jumping up and down a couple of months ago about doing something about nonprofits, and then it died out.
Mr. Ullman, that didn't die out. We will have that report soon. Within the next few weeks, the first phase of it is done. So we will be getting the report of how many that we believe that we can go after in the first phase. It didn't go away. It is being done.
I'm not expecting something immediately, but why don't you tell them once in a while give us some good news about something?
I'd like to.
You know, people are sitting here about the water bills and everything else, and I'll tell you, I hear such sad stories about the city. Low-income housing is not a good thing. It destroys a good neighborhood like mine. And then here comes undesirables for low-income housing that's even worse. I can't walk my dog where I used to because of really some bad, rough people of just sitting there. They don't go to work or nothing. I don't know what they're good for. I want to thank council for allowing me to speak tonight, but I still say this area just reeks from the sour stench of graft and corruption.
Thank you, Mr. Ullman.
Thank you.
James Hogan? Okay. All right, Mark Margavage?
So tonight, I'm going to start with the condemnation process. I don't know if many people are familiar with it, but I've been through it twice, one successfully, and we all on council know the one unsuccessful one. When a place gets condemned, you have two choices. You have an appeal within 20 days, or you have the general inspection done where electrical, HVAC, mechanical, and plumbing come out. They'll give you a list, and you have to repair those deficiencies by a licensed contractor, and then have it re-inspected to get it released. I went through it one time and went through the process probably back in 2009, and then I'm going to talk about my other situation I've been talking about when I did have a place condemned and was released to me without going through the appeal process or without going through the general inspection process. So back in 2010, I had a tenant that fell behind in rent. When I went to the magistrate, I did file for the possession. The day I filed for possession was November 8th of 2010. Very coincidentally, the city came and condemned my house for infestation on November 8th of 2010. When the tenant had notified me of these bed bugs, I called an exterminator in on October 30th. They found no bed bugs, and the tenant got very upset and cursed at the exterminator, and he left. I then called in a second exterminator before November 8th, and the same situation was found. And even the third one after my house was condemned. So I moved ahead with the eviction process, and then they filed two things on that day, the city. It was infestation and the electrical hazard. So I already knew the infestation was not a legitimate concern because of, well, I had exterminators there, and certainly this code enforcement official wasn't more competent than 3 exterminators, 2 at the time, but 1 after. So I asked this person, what is the electrical hazard? Now, some of you may know my background is a longtime landlord, a longtime contractor, so it's a tough hill to go up when you're going to talk about homes with me. So I asked her what was the violation, and I did not receive it. So after that, I then went to her boss at the time, which was Deputy Director Tom Oleski. I had several conversations with Tom over the month from November, probably November 10th or so, to December 3rd. Tom admitted that they don't get involved when evictions are in process, but here they did, and it definitely made the situation very, very confusing. So I made, after the electrical, the attempts to get the electrical code violation, on November 9th was my last day to file for the appeal. So I wanted that information so I could file, I want to know if there truly was an electrical violation. Never received that information with several requests to the city before that day. But on November 30th, I finally did get a letter to address the electrical code violation. On that letter, I do have it here, I'll read it like word for word what this person said. It said, as for the electrical hazards, when you set up a general inspection, the qualified electrical inspector will be able to give you his report. So essentially, this person condemned my house for an electrical violation and then told me someone else will tell me what's wrong with it, because she had no clue. I mean, that's as simple as that. To this day, I never got the electrical violation that happened. So then, continuing, I did speak with Mr. Oleski several times on December 3rd, and then I followed up because I want to know what's the deal with the appeal. On the 6th and the 7th, I left phone calls, and the 8th, I finally sent another letter to the city. I received nothing, so then I sent a letter to the mayor on January 7th. Once again, I heard nothing. This was Mayor Doherty. Finally, I found the lady. I think she felt sorry for me. Her name was Stephanie, and she actually got me going in the right direction. She got in touch with Mark Seitzinger, who was the head of licensing and inspections at the time. Mark came out. He came out to my place. I invited him in, and he actually came out and he looked up and he said, oh, wow, you got smoke detectors? I said, yes. He said, oh, you got GFCIs? I said, yes, I always had. And it was like he was shocked that I had them, maybe based on the other department's information. So the weird thing that came from meeting with Mark was he did give me the release, but in it, he also said in the future, he said, just an FYI, you have 20 days to appeal. Now, obviously, he wasn't aware that I had appealed to Tom Oleski and to the other inspector who did condemn it. So I did get my building back without an appeal. In the city, they said that I fixed the issue. A couple of weeks ago, they said I fixed the issue. I couldn't fix the issue because I wasn't licensed to fix those issues. So there was no issue that was fixed, contrary to them saying that an issue was fixed because there was no general inspection done. But yeah, I did receive my house back without a general inspection and also without an appeal. But I did try to appeal, but I was denied that appeal as well.
Thank you, Mr. Williams.
Oh, that's it? All righty.
See you next week.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Joseph Marshall? Rick Little. Rick, you're up, sir.
Hello, Council. I'm Rick Little, formerly of Scranton Housing Authority. I've been homeless now for 30 days, and I'd like to report to the city about what it's like. These are the same clothes I had on 30 days ago. Same thing. I've been thinking about this because I thinking how I got evicted. I've lived there 14 years, and most of that time I was fighting for my child in family court, and so I learned a little bit about the law and how it works. And one thing I really learned is people in law hate pro se litigants, but under the situation, I mean, they're taking your child away, and you get a public defender that you can get. And I had many of them, and I weeded them out and worked with them. But the thing that really kills you is they assign a lawyer for your child. And that's what's happening all across America, especially since 1966. After Betty Friedan's book and that feminism started and everybody's rights and the black and white rights. I lived all through this, and I'm looking at it now, and I'm seeing the fentanyl, all these heroes of mine just dying from fentanyl overdoses, and it's the worst it's ever been. I mean, they're coming over the border with fentanyl, and people are dying. And this is worse. I mean, I remember the opioid thing in like 2000. That was really bad. And I especially remember the whole, crack, AIDS thing of the 80s. But it's a sad situation. I'm looking at the city's solution for this, to make it look like there's caretakers, because everybody's a caretaker, everybody's a 501(c), and they have no idea of the evil that they're involved in. I mean, these are good people, they have a job, they're doing it, they're asking, provide the papers. I was amazed that there's actually a paper that you have to provide when you become homeless. It's called proof of homelessness paper, and I got one. Took a long time to get one, but you get it over at the 409 Olive Street, the shelter. There's 20 beds there, and you can stay there for 30 days, and that's it, But this is Catholic Services, and you walk around the corner and you see, refugee housing and everything, and like there's all kinds of houses, anything having to do with women or drug addicts. There's all kinds of 501(c)s. I'm looking at the Recovery Bank, and all these people are. It's the 501(c)s. That's the biggest problem. That's the problem because Scranton Housing Authority is a 501(c), and what has happened is that 501(c) has garnered all these other 501(c)s, Lackawanna Pro Bono, Northeast Penn Legal, and especially the Area Agency on Aging. Is there anybody who's watching this, or anybody in the room, who can tell me that they have had a positive experience from the Area Agency on Aging? Because as far as I can see, it's just another funnel for federal funds. And what I'm talking about is the ERAP, because I have a letter saying, Scranton Housing Authority, which is run by the district attorneys, why do we have housing people that are all these lawyers, that have all these judges in their pockets, that are making salaries, 10 times any one of you up there is making, to be the head of housing? Because it's coming down the pike of what the housing is. And I wanted to end, I wanted to give you the Solicitor paper, because the guy that evicted me, this guy James Doran, he's the head of the school board. And it's the same thing with the school board. Same guy, he gives a little speech at the end, there's a waiting list. No kidding. It's a 3-year waiting list everywhere. And maybe somebody can get in that will pay the rent, unlike Mr. Little. I'll have more
Mr.
next
Little.
week.
David Jorbison? Dobson? Dave, is that you? Doesn't look like your regular signature.
And call me by Dobson or the Anthracite Hillbilly if you want.
The Anthracite Hill.
Yeah, I'm from central Pennsylvania, about 900 people in the town. Okay. 501c3s and C4s have come up tonight, and the only there's 3 things about them. Number one, I don't want a 501c3 running my city. I don't want a 501c3 running my life. The first woman in Texas died from a miscarriage and septic shock because the doctor couldn't act upon it. And tax relief, 37.5% or 37% is not an acceptable figure. So if the state wants it, so be it, but then it's time for them to kick in and over 20% or something and start replacing the money and not asking the taxpayer, last guy in the church pew, to pay. Detective Gil Martin came up tonight, and the one thing I'd like to say is that it is not legal for a kid under 21 years of age to possess a handgun. And period. They won't be sold one, and you can't turn one over to them legally. And if it's parents, please lock them up. And if it's somebody else, well, if it's stolen or whatever, then or sold on the street, then somebody needs to be held responsible. Fire also came up, or flood, but I think we should try and get tax relief for anybody with a domestic disaster. And a lot of times flags come up here. Don't rag about flags. Call your Congress. Call the congressman, even if he's from another district, especially for aid for Ukraine. I can't see the value at my help to put a Ukrainian flag out front, but those people are being killed in groves, and the Russians are advancing again. They were guaranteed their own peaceful country 30 years ago, and now, once again, Indian Giver is an assault upon intelligence, because we're the ones that took the white people. But a Russian Giver might be a more appropriate term. And the water, if I have to go up and down Crown Avenue to each address with the missing curb, and if they don't replace it and get a class action suit to do it, I'd love some help. Now, last week I kind of got off a little bit too late on dementia, and people are saying that people aren't suitable for office because they're old or whatever. And I've seen it with people in my life, and dementia takes many forms. It doesn't always make somebody quiet and contemplative. It can make them confrontational. I had an old guy ask me if I was going to vote for the Donald a couple of years ago. He started screaming at me in the supermarket. I said, no. You know, and there I had somebody talk to on the phone, and he was all fired up about donations to St. Jude. Another person told me that's not a religious war in Kosovo, that's the Christians and the Muslims. I mean, you know, we all get, I have trouble remembering people's names sometimes, and it's really weird because I can, yeah, there's whole baskets full of CDs that I can jam along with on guitar and stuff, but I forget names. You know, I just forget them. And, you know, I'll be 70 on April 11th. So it's just really like we're kind of stuck with Joe as Democrats, and I wish some people would cool it and forget this old. Consider, just like he said, consider the alternative. I'm going to suspend the Constitution on the first day. Thank you. Have a good night.
Anyone else wish to address council?
Tom Coyne, Manuka. First of all, good evening, members of council. First, I want to congratulate the Scranton Times on doing the critical story of our electric city sign, Doppelganger, being used on the Willy Wonka movie that appeared in Thursday's paper. And then a second time on Friday's paper, way to fill space. Now off to the races. Tonight we're going to discuss council's operations. Last week, one of the presenters asked if there was a conflict with any council member and Director Oleski. All parties answered no. The council president volunteered he often has to deal with him in his position, which is understandable as the council president and a director's position often run hand in hand. But Mr. Smurl is in fact banned from any discussion based upon potential ethical and criminal actions due to perjury, any misconduct, or disciplinary actions, including executive sessions and meetings with any department on the matter. While acting as a member of this body, Mr. Smurl, on taking the position in council, said he would not take on bids for contracts in the city because of potential conflicts of interest. But Mr. Smurl's business is directly dependent on license inspections and permits and does run in the city of Scranton. HVAC contractors in the city, and because of that, it caused a direct financial conflict with licenses and inspections. And the ethics code is clear. Anything that even suggests a conflict or can be construed as an impropriety, it mandates that the person with the conflict not only recuse themselves from any vote, but bars them as well from any conversations or deliberations. At this point, if Mr. Oleski comes up in conversations, the council's vice president should take over the discussion. It's just an ethical violation because of a direct conflict with financial interests. Next, we have the issue of council saying that terminating an employee is an administrative function and that they have no power to intervene. Even legal counsel opined on it. I had a brief conversation with one of the designers of the city charter and the separation of powers that were crafted after the federal legislation and executive branch, with a few exceptions. Part of this separation of powers and the checks and balances are what unfortunately is lacking. The intent of council having to approve directors was so that the administration could not stack the deck. This was a primary check and balance on the mayor. Department heads who are being responsible to both parties. The failure is that no one considered is what happens when you have someone who's corrupt and one side refuses to act on it. You say your body has no power, that you only have say in hiring a director, which Mr. Oleski is, and that terminations are the scope of the administration only. I say you need to then take a step forward to correct the charter. And the legislative branch, you do have the power to give yourself the combined ability to force a termination of a director. It's easy to be helpless when you refuse to act. Fix the issue. Give yourself the power to remove corrupt directors. Do your job, legislate. Thank you.
Is there no one else on the list? Does anyone else wish to address council?
Brian Skutnik, West Side. So 3 weeks ago, we had the conversation. I wasn't here for it. I watched it. So with Tom giving quite a presentation there, I was going to ask Jerry something, but we'll go to Mr. Schuster. So 3 weeks ago, it was said that with the 31 houses condemned under one inspector without a certification, that it goes to Mr. Oleski to make the decision, right?
That's what was said to us, yes.
Okay. So since I'm on you, do you have any law enforcement experience, any enforcement experience at all in that matter?
No law enforcement.
Okay. Mark, we're really good friends after last week, I think, right? So how about you? Any?
Zero.
Okay. So would it make any sense for you to provide Schuster permission to go write a speeding ticket? Tom lacks the IPMC certification as the director making the decisions. Does that make any sense?
We got answers. We got answers to
I got
the questions. He'll report them in fifth order.
Okay.
The questions you're talking about, Mr. Schuster got answers.
Okay. So then onto, since there was the person of the 31 condemnations, I'm going to bring it up to, I mean, you guys are a legislative side of it, right? How about something that does a background check on these people? One specific person sued 5 times by 5 different people for home improvement fraud, home improvement charges that were all over the news, and now this is a person of public trust that's going to come after you for what your house looks like? Does that make any sense? No? Same person could write a falsified affidavit to tell the city after he's outside of my house taking pictures with his cell phone, not in city policy, that it's stalking because he's at my house, and then claims he's followed over 10 times, doesn't have dates, doesn't have times. City tells him, well, you should go to the magistrate. So goes to the magistrate and tries to say the same thing. Can't even tell the magistrate what color vehicle follows him. Any of that sound like a legit person that should be here? No? Nobody has answers? Why is there no background checks? It's really quiet. Anybody?
I requested background checks and vetting of employees and board members of all the authorities.
So why doesn't it get done?
Fell on deaf ears, but I did request that in my tenure here.
You mean you just had a person that was in code enforcement recently that had several counts of retail theft, and they're out there making public trust decisions? You know what I mean? One all over WNEP for ripping off a homeowner, charges and everything. Now they're deciding if you can do the same job on your own house. Doesn't really make any sense besides somebody owed somebody a favor, right? So, and then we have Kaylee Pokolsky. I mean, we'll get to HR here. I went and I filed a bunch of right to knows. One of hers tried to claim that the reason of 3 people leaving code enforcement was my fault. So we'll get to the last 3 people that left. One of them, you guys got a 7-page letter from. Anyone want to deny it? You got a 7-page letter reporting misconduct and illegal activity. Another one was given a time frame to report that she lived in Scranton. Her IPMC certification says she lives in Tobyhanna, that she turned into the city. So Tom Oleski was very aware she didn't even live in the city or the county. But it went on. And then the third one got fired because she couldn't pass the test. But Kaylee Pokolsky could give sworn statements saying that these 3 people quit because of me. I live with one of them. Does that make any sense to you? But this is your administration. The same lady that didn't have a clue anything about FMLA law, that kind of ran her mouth to an employee trying to act like she knew, telling an employee that 9 days after an employee hands her FMLA paperwork that she signed, approved, 9 days later tells her, I want new FMLA paperwork because I didn't think you were going to use it. What intelligence does that have? It has none. All it ended up is getting you guys a lawsuit. You know what I mean? Like, these are the people that everybody's appointing, but they're just costing everybody in this room money because they don't have a clue what they're doing. That's all.
Anyone else? Nope.
Good evening, Council. Mike Mancini, Scranton. I would like to say that bravery and strength are what determines a Scranton police officer. Welcome home, Detective Kyle Gilmartin. I promised here this evening that I'd come back and talk about how to fix things around here. And I'm going to do that over the duration of the next 4 minutes and 30 seconds if I can. It starts with blight. If you notice in the city of Scranton, you have major thoroughfares like North Main, South Main Avenue. You have the side streets like Luzerne Street, Washburn Street, and such. If you notice, predominantly throughout our 27.7 square miles that encompasses Scranton, inside of it, you're going to see a lot of streets. And when you see these major thoroughfares, if you notice, the first block going in from these main streets are probably most of the blighted that we have in the city, not to mention our major thoroughfares. So what's happening here is our communities are collapsing upon each other. And when you have this, and you've had it for a length of time, the blight actually pushes beyond our city limits. We recently had actors pulled from Nicholson, Mayfield, and Old Forge. So as we have paid 55% of the tax base for the county, as we flounder, so does the rest of Lackawanna County and the surrounding areas. It's up to each one of you as legislators with your chairs to continue to try and do the right thing. I mentioned this railway system and the fact that we're nowhere near ready for it. Here's my plan as far as blight. That's getting the community involved. That's leaning on our neighborhood watch programs, our neighborhood leaders. We have a lot of these kids that are doing things like breaking into cars, things like that. We have magistrates that push them through. My recommendation would be to take those individuals with their community service, allow them to work with the neighborhood watch programs like Westside Neighborhood Watch, Green Ridge, Hill Neighborhood Association, Southside. They have good people there, but they're short of people. So it's going to be a heavy lift, but we need the community involvement, and that starts with our neighborhood watch. So what I'd like to see is our youth go through this neighborhood watch, have the neighborhood watch program, allow for like on the weekends where we have blighted properties and we have the permits and licensing, and now we're adding 2 additional cars to the force. Isn't our goal to actually reduce the number of vehicles? I would recommend that instead of fining people, give them a timeline to actually give a choice as opposed to a fine. Because if you're just fining people, number one, you don't have the ability to collect it, all right? They're just pieces of paper until monies are actually received. So we have to take a proactive approach. That would be to have the community involvement. Say on Saturdays, you have people from the Neighborhood Watch, you go out to specific properties and have them work with the people to fix up the properties. You have the community involvement, you have the Neighborhood Watch getting a chance to know the individuals and bringing communities together. I think that's important. We have to go back to old school to fix these big problems. Because once this railway system comes through, if we're not going to fix this blight, what you're doing is you're preventing the homeowners, property owners, full profit potential on their investment. You know, a house isn't just somewhere you live. It's not where you drop the anchor. It's a true investment of what your future is going to hold. You know, and as we increase our taxes, we want to just make sure that our blight is in place, because you want to have the true value of that property based upon the millages that we pay on a yearly basis. That's going to come to fruition at some point, but you can't choke the property owners because of this blight. Blight is very important in our community, and it needs to be addressed because, you know, you have these kids that come through these our communities and they see this blight and it causes them to do bad things as opposed to good ones. You know, we want to try and have our children with a future here in Scranton, and when they go to college, only 25% of them stay. So I think it's very important that we become proactive on our approach when it comes to involvement with blight. I'll be back next week. Thank you, Council.
Anyone else?
Fifth order, 5A motions.
Mr. King, do you have any motions or comments?
Just a couple comments. I know that, I think I saw it on Facebook recently, there were questions about the Robinson Park project, and I reached out to Scott Gassemeyer today. In fact, he reached out to me about a week or two ago, trying to reach out to somebody from the East Mountain Neighborhood Association, and I gave him a cell phone number, and I spoke to him today to find out. He's supposed to go up there and meet with the Neighborhood Association to give them an update. I believe even bids are going out this week for that project. That's going to happen up at Robinson Park. So he told me a meeting is going to probably happen within the next week or two. So that's a good thing that we'll be able to get that project moving. Also, we received an email today from someone about Meadow Avenue between River Street and Music Street. and the individual is right. It's a mess. There's potholes. I noticed that they try to fill several of them within the last day or two. But I know for a fact that Meadow Avenue is on the paving list, and that's going to be not only paved but then restriped within, I don't know, it's on the spring paving list. So that would be Meadow Avenue between River and Music Street. Also, it was mentioned about the nonprofits, and I believe Mr. Smurl mentioned something that the company that we hired is out there doing the HUP test, and it's sounding like they may be identifying a few that their status may be changing soon, let's put it that way. So we shall see, but we didn't just shelve that, Mr. Ellman. That process is moving forward, and we expect to report back in short order. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. King. Mr. Schuster, do you have any motions or comments?
Thank you. The first one I'm going to make is that I'd like to say I had the pleasure to attend Detective Gilmartin's homecoming last Friday. It was a great event. He is definitely progressing well health-wise, and the message to the city that he gave was perfect for this moment in time. There's a couple questions we had in the last few weeks that we did get some answers to. The first one I will start with is, Councilman Schuster asked the following questions. Are the city inspectors and code enforcement departments certified for both inspections and condemnations? And may they perform these duties prior to certification under IPMC? The answer we got was that inspectors must work with their managers, Tom Oleski and Andrew Sunday, in order to condemn a property. Both Mr. Oleski and Mr. Sunday are BCOs. So, Mr. Voldenberg, could we just clarify this a little bit further? Could they explain, give us an explanation of how this is allowed, where this is allowed under, and how the city works through this process with sign-offs from superiors?
I will.
And also, while we're at it, if there's any plans to do background checks when hiring city employees.
I'll ask that also.
Thank you. The next one was on the Sorrenti Center. It's been something that's come up often. So we asked for updates on the Sorrenti Center, what work has been completed, what work is pending, what's the time utilization from the city, and by whom is the facility used. We got that the following work has been completed: roofing, exterior repointing and repainting, plumbing, the simulator and SID room, and the HVAC. It also states that they have plans for interior and electrical work for classrooms and an evidence room, which are being reviewed, and they will bid out this year. And we also asked about getting an upcoming caucus. So it says future council caucus can be planned. And please remember that the Sorrenti Center is not a public facility. So it's not a public facility, but I don't know if anyone on council disagrees, but if we could have Mr. Voldenberg start to look for a date for a council caucus on an update for Sorrenti Center. I don't think it's a huge rush, but I think in the next few months. Thank you. One of the other questions was that I had asked again for the Rubicon rollout, and the answer I got was members of the administration, including Director of Technology, Jack Rieger, met with this topic in person with Councilman Schuster and Councilman Smurl on the 22nd. They did meet with us about Rubicon. It was a very informative meeting. We were informed that the rollout wouldn't occur in January, but I wasn't given the date of the rollout. So if we could just let them know, it was a very informative meeting, but the rollout date wasn't given to us at that meeting.
I'll follow up for a better date.
Thank you. That's all for this evening.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Schuster. Dr. Rothchild, do you have any more or comments?
I do. I also first wanted to welcome Detective Gilmartin back home. I'm sure he has continued work in recovery from his injuries, but we're glad to have him back here in Scranton. I'm happy to see how proud we are to see the work that he's already done and that he's recovering and on the right path. I wanted to also bring up a couple of the responses that we had received from the administration. So first one, I think a number of us have asked about this before, and we've had several complaints about 125, 127 North St. Francis Cabrini Avenue, and that property, whether it could be condemned based on being a nuisance property, with the number of Scranton police calls that have been there in the past. And so Chief Carroll had given us a response that there weren't any recent confirmed gun incidents at this location. I guess that was one of the concerns, but they're going to work together along with code enforcement to determine if the property is in fact a nuisance property and if it needs to be condemned based on that. So I think we've asked for that for a while, so I'm not sure why they're just now working on that, but I'm glad to hear that they are, and hopefully they'll come to a determination if that's appropriate. request that I had was on the demolition properties, so they did provide us with an update on what properties have been demolished so far within this year, then which ones are going to be included as spring projects. And then one of the properties that we had or I had gotten a lot of questions on specifically that, and whether that was on the list, is 1068 Cottage Avenue. So it is listed here, but it does have the caveat that an asbestos report was completed on the property in November 2023, and the title search is underway because the city had a question about whether or not it had a new owner, and if possible, this will be among the properties prioritized for the spring demolition. And one more update that we had also received, Miss Shelley Pratt McHugh with Moms Demand Action, she spoke here a few weeks ago, and she had a number of questions that the mayor had responded to in here too. So I'm just going to forward those responses along to her with regards to that. And that's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. McAndrew, do you have any motions or comments?
I got a couple comments. So I have responses from two inquiries over the past couple weeks. So the first one is regarding the $300 fee for an appeal via code enforcement. And, I wanted the rationale for the $300 non-refundable fee. That, if you're going in to fight a $50 fee, you still got to pay $300, which I thought was ridiculous. But here's what I got. Here's the answer I got. The $300 fee for code enforcement appeals is legislated via city ordinance. The appeal fee covers legal fees charged by the appeals board solicitor. The solicitor bills $150 per hour for preparation of cases and attendance at meetings. This fee is non-refundable. So that's the answer I got. And then another inquiry was about the dispatcher on weekends for DPW. These were concerns brought to me when we had two bad weather events. We didn't have a lot of snow, but they were on the weekends. And in the past, historically, I was told by workers that this is the case. They have a dispatcher when they know there's a snowstorm coming up. To alleviate, all these calls of having their streets plowed or missed, they had no one to call. So this is the response I got. So due to the collective bargaining agreement of DPW employees, dispatch is not operated on the weekends. Well, it used to be, so I don't know what happened. Dispatch is staffed Monday through Friday from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. When winter weather or major storms are in the forecast, we may staff dispatch on weekends, utilizing overtime. The city monitors for pending weather events and will always respond during weather emergencies. So I guess they say they kind of have one on the weekends, but it's not that clear. And then Mr. Spindler, Les Spindler, had every once in a while he has a great idea. And I like the fact that 2 weeks ago he brought up, hey, we do a lot of coal patching, which doesn't last very long. And he said, Wilkes-Barre has a hot patch, or whatever you want to call it, a hot pole or a hot pothole machine. And after him being here 2 weeks ago, I was out somewhere, I don't know where it was, and somebody came up to me and said, you know what, Mark, the city had one years ago. I said, what happened to it? He goes, I don't know, but the city at one point had one. So, you know what, it's a pretty good idea. We're throwing a lot of ARPA money around the past couple months. Maybe this is an investment that'd be worthwhile. We can look into. Could you reach out to the city and ask, if they can look back and see when we have one, how did it work out, what's the deal, how come we don't have one? There might be somebody on staff still in DPW that might remember it and see if we can get some information about that, or maybe having that added to the, the capital list next year.
I will, Mr. McAndrew.
And the rest I'm going to save for when we introduce the towing contract proposal, or ordinance, I'm sorry. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. McAndrew. I have a few things. The legislation on Deacon Street for the traffic change. Legislation is being prepared. The administration submitting legislation to vacate Gardner Street it was a dead end. And that also, the legislation is also being prepared for that. City Council was asked by residents questioning the public health coordinator position. 2 out of the 3 years of the grant given to the city by Moses Taylor Foundation for public health coordinator position were fulfilled. While the grant funding expires in June, the Moses Taylor Foundation has agreed to fund the position for 1 more year when the position is filled. The position is posted on the city's website, and we are actively searching for a candidate to fill that position at this time. The Theodore Street Bridge. Naturally, everyone knows now it is closed. There are major repairs being done on it. The city did take up barriers and block the street, and they also provided signage to direct traffic around that street being closed. The administration had advised me when I asked that Norfolk Southern was contacted and asked if they would be paying for the cost of the equipment or the barriers being put up and all of the signage, and they have agreed to pay for that. Also, Meadow Avenue, River Street is being paved, and rear 811 Cedar Avenue on Kearse Court, quality of life and trash issues, they were sent to code enforcement to check. That is all I have right now.
5B for introduction and ordinance, creating a capital reserve fund to accumulate and disperse monies for capital expenditures as part of the city's long-term capital planning and to provide for the administration of said capital reserve fund by providing for sources of funds to sustain the capital reserve fund, prescribing the use of capital reserve funds, and authorizing the submission of a capital reserve fund spending plan.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, so moved.
5C for introduction and ordinance, ratifying the execution of a temporary construction easement agreement between Kathleen Kojowski and the City of Scranton to complete emergency stormwater debris removal following the September 9th, 2023 storm.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5C be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5D for introduction and ordinance, enacting the towing ordinance of 2024 by repealing and replacing the city's towing and storage code.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion that item 5B be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question,
On the question, once again, we'll wait and see if we receive some questions from some of the individuals that spoke tonight, and then maybe we can try to get some answers or at least generate some discussion over whether making additional changes to that ordinance are appropriate or amendments.
Thank you. Also on the question, I agree with Mr. King. I was glad that the 2 individuals came tonight to express their concerns with this ordinance as it affects them greatly. There were some other concerns I got when I was out and about. So I wasn't involved with the process of this ordinance, but I would like to wait and see what those concerns are and see if council can address them in an appropriate fashion.
So on the question, I'm looking at every piece of legislation, we get a cover sheet. And it's the administration's rationale as to why we should vote on it as a council. So the sheet, how it reads to me, it says updates to the 2023 towing ordinance of 2024. It says the mayor, chief of police, business administrator, city solicitor, and deputy city solicitor met with about 20 representatives of the city's towing industry in late 2023. We know that. There was a meeting, okay? and then to solicit feedback and discuss the proposed changes. So we thought that took place, and we thought, at least I thought it occurred, and everybody was happy. But then I got a couple phone calls over the weekend about this legislation being introduced. So I'm going to continue to read what it says. So it says, the administration, this is after they met, continued follow-up with the TOWA representatives over the following weeks. Based on those conversations, the towing ordinance of 2024 makes the following updates to the 2023 draft, including a list of things. So tonight, it doesn't look like that, the same 20 were involved in this process, or all of the 20, so that's why I have a concern, because the rationale is to say, hey, everybody's on board, but I don't think so. So I, too, look forward to a collective group, the towers, sharing their concerns before, we'll introduce this, but before we do final vote, just to make sure everybody's on page. Maybe they have to get back to the table together. I don't know, but there's concerns out there, so let's hear them.
Further on the question, I think it's important to note, we sat around that table. There must have been, 20, 25 towers. I will say this. They were told to form their own committee, submit, and I believe adjustments were made. At the end of the day, I will say this. There is no way you're going to please all 25 of them. I just want to make note of that because, there's 5 of us, all 5 of us.
No,
I'm just saying that I want to see what some of those concerns are, and if they look reasonable, then maybe we can look into making some adjustments. But I do know that they formed a committee and they were asked to submit. Maybe the committee wasn't as inclusive as it should have been, or didn't allow participation by certain people, but
after the initial meeting, I get that.
Right.
There's a disconnect, it appears.
Yeah, well, the committee was formed, and then whatever that committee determined adjustments needed to be made were sent into the city. But I guess there may have been some that weren't included on that committee, or some concerns that they were expressed were just maybe ignored or not included. So I just want to see what they are, and if it's possible to make adjustments. If it seems reasonable to do so, then I suggest we consider that.
Absolutely. It was my suggestion to the towers to form a committee and to come with all of their gripes at the time and to come up with a plan. I have been working with the towers for a few months. They did come forward with this plan. We went over it, adjusted a few more things, but this is news to me. So naturally, you want to see what else they want to either add or change in the ordinance. But again, are we going to have 100% happiness? I doubt it, but we could at least see what their complaints are.
On the question, I agree with hearing them out on their concerns and making sure that we have all of our ducks in a row prior to finalizing and passing this legislation. But I am also happy to see the work that was already put in by the city in talking with the towing companies and making sure that this ordinance works for the majority of everyone. So I'm in favor of introducing for tonight.
Thank you. All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved.
5E for introduction, a resolution authorizing the mayor and other appropriate city officials to execute and enter into a contract with Borton Lawson Engineering, LLC, to perform East Mountain stormwater and drainage improvements with engineering and related services.
At this time, I entertain a motion that item 5E be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second?
On the question, all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5F for introduction, a resolution authorizing the city of Scranton to accept a stipend of up to $5,000 from the National Youth Employment Coalition to be used towards youth outreach and education.
At this time, I entertain a motion that item 5F be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, All those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
5G, formerly 8B, for introduction, Resolution Number 16, 2024, amending Resolution Number 69, 2022, a resolution as amended entitled, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate officials of the City of Scranton to take all necessary actions to implement the American Rescue Plan Act grant funds in the amount of $68,746,050 to reallocate funds from various budgeted ARPA accounts to allow for violence prevention efforts.
At this time, entertain a motion that item 5G be introduced into its proper committee.
So moved.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor of introduction signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Oh, opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
I make a motion to suspend the rules to move item 5G to seventh order for a final vote.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, and so moved.
Sixth order, 6A, reading by title, filed to Council Number 6, 2024, an ordinance amending Chapter 328 of Scranton City Code, parking lots and parking garages, to update and clarify administrative provisions for the licensing, regulation, inspection, and enforcement of certain off-street parking lots and parking garages.
You've heard reading by title of item 6A. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 6A pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
6B, reading by title, filed to Council Number 7, 2024, an ordinance amending file to Council Number 102, 2015, an ordinance entitled, amending the Administrative Code of the City of Scranton, Chapter 412, Streets and Sidewalks, Section 3, governing excavations by making additions, deletions, relettering, and changing the name of the department in portions of Section 3 relating to excavations in order to bring the code up to date, to reflect updated, reasonable application fees for pave cut permits.
You have heard reading by title of item 6B. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 6B pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
6C, reading by title, filed to Council Number 8, 2024, an ordinance amending Chapter 445 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Scranton to provide for the regulation of wireless communication facilities by the city.
You have heard reading by title of item 6C. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 6C pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
6D, reading by title, filed to Council Number 9, 2024, an ordinance establishing regulations governing the construction, maintenance, and operation of facilities within the public rights-of-way of the City of Scranton.
You have heard reading by title of item 6D. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 6D pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor of signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
6E, reading by title, filed to Council Number 10, 2024, an ordinance establishing regulations governing excavations within the public rights-of-way of the City of Scranton.
You have heard reading by title of item 6E. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move that item 6E pass reading by title.
Second.
On the question, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it, and so moved.
Seventh order, 7A, for consideration by the Committee on Finance for adoption, filed to Council Number 5, 2024, levying local service tax for year 2024 at $156.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As chairperson for the Committee on Finance, I recommend final passage of item 7A.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7A legally and lawfully adopted.
7B for consideration by the Committee on Community Development for adoption, Resolution Number 17, 2024, amending and updating the City of Scranton's Inspection and Fees Code to reflect reasonable application and inspection fees for broadband service and in accordance with the city's contract with Northeast Inspection Consultants, LLC, for third-party UCC enforcement services to include the same.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson of the Committee on Community Development?
As chairperson for the Committee on Community Development, I recommend final passage of item 7B.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes. I hereby declare item 7B legally and lawfully adopted.
7C for consideration by the Committee on Public Safety for adoption, Resolution Number 18, 2024, ratifying and approving the execution and submission of the Assistance to Firefighters Grant by the City of Scranton Fire Department to the Federal Emergency Management Agency's fiscal year 2023 program for up to $75,000 to provide funding to be used for National Fire Protection Association 1582 medical evaluation program for the members of the Scranton Fire Department.
What is the recommendation of chairperson for the Committee on Public Safety?
As chairperson for the Committee on Public Safety, I recommend final passage of item 7C.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7C legally and lawfully adopted.
7D, formerly 8B, for consideration by the Committee on Finance for adoption, Resolution Number 16, 2024, amending Resolution Number 69, 2022, a resolution as amended entitled, authorizing the mayor and other appropriate officials of the City of Scranton to take all necessary actions to implement the American Rescue Plan Act grant funds in the amount of $68,746,050 to reallocate funds from various budgeted ARPA accounts to allow for violence prevention efforts.
What is the recommendation of the chairperson for the Committee on Finance?
As chairperson of the Committee on Finance, I recommend final passage of item 7D.
Second.
On the question, roll call, please.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Dr. Rothchild?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes, I hereby declare item 7D legally and lawfully adopted.
8th Order 8A, Resolution Number 13, 2024.
This was a public hearing this evening for the liquor license transfer. It will be placed in 7th Order next week for a final vote.
8B, Resolution Number 16, 2024.
This resolution was taken from the table and placed in 7th Order for a final vote. If there is no further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. This meeting is adjourned.